Hey everyone, welcome to Marketing for Designers podcast. I'm your host, Masha Coyne, a messaging strategist and a copywriter for the interior design industry. I've been marketing for what feels like forever in my past career at some of the biggest global firms like KPMG and Deloitte. Today, I write website copy for designers using my signature voice of customer framework. If you're a designer looking to up your marketing game and attract premium clients, this podcast is for you. Each week on the show, we're going to be talking all things marketing, from branding to messaging to social media, SEO, and so much more. So you can have all the tools you need to grow your business and attract your dream clients. Welcome back to another episode of Marketing for Designers podcast. So today we're talking about SEO, and SEO has been a hot topic lately. And I seem to be talking to a lot of different experts who cover different parts of SEO. And that's the thing about SEO. It feels like there's not just one way to tackle it. There's many different things you can do to help your business show up in searches. And today we'll focus specifically on getting more organic leads from SEO. So my guest today is Nina Clapperton. Nina is a multi-six-figure travel blogger and the founder of She Knows SEO. After sharing her stories of living in over 12 countries in 10 years on all platforms and making $0, she learned SEO and scaled her business to 65,000 page views in 6 months. Within a little over a year, she was making $30,000 a month passively. Now, Nina runs a portfolio of niche sites and helps over 7,000 students grow their online businesses. She's on a mission to help businesses reach their target audience without paid ads. Welcome to the show, Nina.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's quite an impressive bio. I'm so happy. I feel like you're the right person to talk about SEO. So my audience is interior designers, and let's keep that in mind. And we're talking about getting traffic to your site. But can we take a step back for a second and explain the difference between organic and other ways of getting traffic? What is the difference?
I like to think of it as someone is literally asking you for what they want. With organic traffic, they are stumbling upon you naturally. They are figuring out a problem that they have in the moment and seeing you as the solution immediately. You're not popping up where you're not wanted. I mean, how many of us hate when we're watching YouTube or TV and then a commercial pops up just when it's getting good, or when paid ads jump out at you when you're trying to click between web pages or something. There's definitely a place for that, but I do think that you're not going to get the same kind of leads and the same kind of people who are interested in you. Whereas if you're finding people who are stumbling upon you organically, and this can happen in different ways. I mean, my sister's an architect actually, and so one of her major lead generation tools is client referrals. If she builds one house for somebody and they like it, they tell a friend, that friend then wants to work with her. That's an organic lead because you didn't pay for it. It happened naturally just from a friend bragging about their new house to another friend. But with Google, someone is actually going to Google and searching for a result that they want. So they are literally telling you, I need you to help me. It's very different than having someone come and breathe down your neck and kind of try to mansplain something to you. They are saying, I need help, I need a solution. And then you can position yourself as that solution. So you get people who want you. And I think that's the major thing. I also think people from organic reach basically are a little bit warmer to you because they don't feel like you need to prove yourself to prove that the ad wasn't just a fluke that I'm here now.
Right. So it sounds like organic is you're in front of the right people with the right information that people actually want from you.
Yes, exactly.
I actually love that you mentioned your sister who's an architect. And you mentioned that most of her clients, I think that's what you mentioned, that most of her clients come via referrals. And that's what I keep hearing from interior design clients of mine, that most of their traffic, most of their clients come via a referral. So my question to you is, why do we need to think about SEO if most clients come from referrals?
Because to start with, who's referring anyone to you? So when you first get started, you don't have anyone that can say, hey, like Nina builds amazing websites, or hey, like my sister builds this amazing house. Like there isn't anybody to do the referring. But also when you rely on someone else entirely for like the source of clients, that could dry up. Like what if that person who was referring you to somebody started working with another designer because their personal style changed? Nothing about you. It's just they changed their situation. Now they're going to refer that person out and you've lost that source of leads. So in that way, you don't own your traffic sources and your lead generation. And that means that it could vanish at any moment. And personally, I'm a bit of a control freak. So I definitely want to be in control of the way that I am gathering at least some amount of my clients. I think it's always important to have more than one way you're getting people, but also having a way that proves your authority. And that's kind of the cool thing with Google and with search, is that everyone sees it. So it's kind of like bragging rights on this massive scale of like, look, I ranked in the top 10 on Google out of hundreds and thousands of websites. And because of that, clearly, like I know more than other people to some extent. Definitely there's some SEO stuff you have to do there to get to that point. It's not just being like an expert on your style of interior design, but it is this really like important kind of flag posting of your experience that everyone gets to see, that builds your reputation. Because also when someone refers someone to you, the first thing they're going to do is search you. That way they can figure out if they like your stuff. And I've actually seen a lot of people where they'll say like, okay, go to She Knows SEO. And when they Google that, the brand doesn't even come up. And that's a major issue because now you're hunting to try and find this designer. And you want to make it very easy, even with those referrals, for someone to find you.
I like that. I like that. It sounds like a lot more strategic and proactive approach to marketing rather than relying on people coming your way. I mean, referrals are amazing. That's definitely, how my clients come to me as well, but you don't want to rely solely just on that. You want to have like a marketing strategy and everything in place. So tell me about some of the traffic sources, or what are some of the strategies that you recommend to make sure, because the things that I keep hearing about is you want to optimize your website for SEO, you want to do blogging. I want to I want to hear your take on this. What should interior designers consider or do or think about when it comes to SEO?
So the first thing is you definitely need to have a website that you own. There's other platforms that show up in search as well, like Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. So your profiles there can show up, but you don't own those. So make sure you have a website that you own. It's just like owning a business storefront. If you're operating out of a car versus like a restaurant operated out of the back of like my dad's broken down minivan is not going to do as well as like a nice restaurant. Mm-hmm. So have your website, make sure it has a name that is unique from any other website. I think with businesses, we often kind of make mistakes with it where we might name it like classyarchitecture.com or something, not really realizing that there's 1,000 of those already. So name your business something that is distinct, and then have a distinct style or type of interior design that you do. I don't know any designer, I've worked with a few through my sister, that don't have like a specific kind of niche to some extent. So you want to make that clear. The way that you're then going to optimize the website once you own it, honestly, a lot of the things you're going to do are pretty simple. People make it very complicated. So I'm going to break it down like the base things you need to do. First is for your homepage. Tell us who you are and what your business is about, please. Your homepage is not going to have a keyword associated with it because the keyword will be the name of your website. It's going to be someone will just search She Knows SEO and She Knows SEO comes up. Then you want to make sure you have an about section on your homepage and you feature your expertise and experience. So this is a place for you to basically have a billboard about yourself. From all of that, you then want to share some services pages or blog posts that kind of further that expertise. Like, again, this whole homepage, it's a billboard for your services for someone coming to you for the first time. From that, you then want to optimize your other pages for search terms. So no one's really searching for like interior design homepage. Like they don't want that. They're going to want your services page or your gallery page and things like that. So I'll give an example for my sister who we had to turn this off because it was doing so well that actually she got too many clients. So this works. But what you want to do is figure out what are the terms people are searching to hire somebody. So is it architect near me? Is it like townhouse architecture? Is it a style of architecture? Is it location based? What are the ways that people are searching? And here's a tip. You can have more than one services page, even if it's technically the same service for you. So for my sister, she builds townhouses, garages, normal houses, whatever, all within this one city. But what people were searching for are those individual specializations. They wanted an architect who could definitely build, for some reason, a garage that would hold like 12 Porsches. And I was like, what? Sell them. Like, that's insane. But
it's a good client.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, well, that person really wants something specialized and luxurious. So they're going to search for something very specific. So I recommend a tool called Key Search. It is $24 for a month. You can get it for 1 month, use the keywords from that month forever, and then you're good. There's also SEMrush, SEMrush, that you can get. They have a free plan to start with, and then it's paid. I don't remember the exact cost monthly. But with that, what you're going to do is you're going to go in and type in interior design, and then your location, type in your specialized type of interior design, and look at the related terms that come up and figure out, oh, hey, that one says like, I don't know enough about interior design to like really give terms that are going to be right, but let's
like maybe it's a new build or a new construction or somebody who is just doing interiors or somebody who is doing decor. But my question to you is, so you're using these tools and how do you actually, and I feel like you're kind of answering that question. How do you actually figure out what are your clients searching for? Like, how do you know what is it that they're typing? Let's say the lead comes from a referral, but they do want to check it. Or maybe it doesn't come from a referral. What are your ideal clients actually typing into Google? Are you saying that go into those tools, type in your interior design, let's say location, and see what are other terms that people are using?
So that's where we're going to look at the related terms. And under related terms, there's a metric called volume, which is the amount of people who are searching for that thing every single month. So when you type in interior design Toronto, let's say, you can see, okay, that might get 1,000 searches, but it'll give you a list of 700 other terms. So you've got a lot to choose from. You can scroll down and see, oh, hey, new build architecture or new build interior design Toronto has 700. And with that one, I know specifically it's what my audience wants. What I find a lot of people do is they go for the high volume keywords because they're like, okay, I want to get 100,000 people to my website. And I get that. Like, I totally understand. We all want to be sold out and booked and busy. But it's actually way better to go more specific to what they are searching for that you specialize in. And then if we make a couple pages, we have a new build version, we have, and maybe like apartment interior design, maybe we have like modern interior design Toronto. If we create an individual page for each of these specific things, you're going to trust it more. The example I usually give for that is I'm like, if you go to a restaurant and they serve every cuisine in the world and they try to shove it all into one menu and they don't break it up by cuisine, first of all, you don't trust them because you're like, wow, you do everything? That seems sketch. But also, you can't find things easily. And so if you know, hey, I'm really feeling like Chinese food tonight, you've just kind of jumped through this web or this menu to figure it out. With your website, having dedicated services pages for those individual types of services are going to help you. And there's no like perfect way to find exactly what your audience is always searching for. You're going to get better at this over time when you start to think about, okay, someone was looking for a new house and they want to like look for a real estate person. What are they going to search? If someone's looking for a new dog, what did they search? And the same principles will apply for searching other things as it is searching for interior design. So if I'm looking for like a new vet near me for my dog, I'm going to do kind of the same thing, like large dog vet, 5 stars or something like that. Mm-hmm. A search for something that is going to satisfy my needs. So I recommend having like at least one of those pages, many times 3 to 5 is kind of the ideal. Also, if you operate in different locations, because that's what's called local SEO, is optimizing for each individual spot. And so that's why when I'm telling you to start with like interior design Toronto, It's a pretty general search, to be honest, because it doesn't specify the type of interior design. But then you're going to want to do it again for other locations that you specialize in. And it's okay if it's a larger region, like it doesn't have to be a city. It could be a province or state. It could be probably not a country unless your country's a lot smaller, US and Canada. But we can get more specific there. And when you're scrolling through those related keywords, like just even if you are going to cancel the service after a month, put them into a notes app for yourself, into like an Excel spreadsheet. Just that way you have like extra ones that you're like, I have an hour later, maybe I'll like add a page about that other service that I also do. So then from there, when you have this page, the way that you're going to optimize it, number one, the URL is going to be sheknowsseo.co/ and then whatever the keyword is, exactly as it's typed in. So let's use interior design Toronto as our example still. It'd be sheknowsseo.co/ interior-design-Toronto. Then the title is going to have interior design Toronto in it. You need to have that full term. Now, if it was not grammatically correct, that's okay. You can adjust the grammar, but we want to have it in the title. We also want to include it in the post, usually 2 to 3 times. So with a services page, it's pretty easy because you can say like interior design Toronto services pricing. There's a header section there. You've said it now in the post once. You can add it a couple times. You're then also going to make sure that when you're like filling out the post itself, you're actually
the post, you mean blog post, or do you mean
sorry, I call like the writing area post. That's my bad. It's going to be a page.
It's the copy for the page, basically.
Correct. Yeah. So it's the page. But when you're typing, basically, just make sure you're actually on topic, because Google does check to make sure that you're not like interior design services and actually you're selling puppies out of your basement or something. Like they want you to be on topic.
It's got to be relevant and it's got to be on top. I have a question for you. So you just mentioned that you want to make sure that your keyword is showing up about 3 to 4 times on the page. Is Google smart enough to, like, does the keyword have to show up exactly as the keyword, or can it be something, I don't know, like related? Like when we're talking about, let's say we're talking about kitchen renovation, but then on the page somewhere we're talking about, redoing your kitchen or kitchen construction or kitchen refresh or something like that. Can we not? Because I feel like if we keep repeating the same keyword over and over again, it's redundant, and now it's very clear that we're writing for Google rather than for humans.
Yes, exactly. I was just going to say with secondary keywords, to me, they count as primary keywords because Google basically uses something called latent semantic indexing, where it knows that renovating a kitchen and kitchen reno and kitchen redo all mean the same thing. It's so smart now that it can put those context clues together. So when I'm saying like use the keyword, if it's something like interior design Toronto, it's pretty easy to pull that in. But you're right. If it's like modern Art Deco kitchen renovation, like that'd be weird to say. So you always want to make sure it's natural every single time it's in the post. The title is going to be a little bit less natural, but titles kind of always are. They're always a bit salesy. Like that's kind of the point. But also when you write the post, just make sure that the whole thing needs to sound natural anyway, because no one wants to buy from a robot. They want to buy from a real person. So you're going to want to make sure that you're being very clear again about your expertise and your authority. Google looks at it. It's called EEAT to make sure that you actually have the qualifications to be talking about this thing. So if you're saying, oh, I do kitchen renovations, mention that you've done a kitchen renovation before. If you have any certifications that like allow you to do special things, mention those. Then the next thing would be a blog post. I do recommend for service providers having about 10 blog posts. And these are basically just like FAQs almost, like common questions that you might get from your audience. So for my sister, a lot of times it was like things to do. She does a lot of like sustainable builds. So it was about like the type of insulation that she would use or how she handles like having a ton of windows for natural light versus I don't really know enough about architecture to understand, but something about the cost of heating. And so because of that, I was like, hey, if everyone's asking you that, write a blog post about it. Now, that has the benefit of you get those questions answered easily for your audience, so you don't have to type out a new email every time, but also it can be searchable. So we're going to do the same thing we did with that interior design Toronto post. We're going to figure out what we think the questions our audience have are, and we're going to go and start searching in key search or in SEMrush. They work the same way, and just see what the related topics are. Now, if you literally have no idea what someone might be wondering about your specific niche, like you've got zero ideas, there's a lot of cool tools out there that you can definitely go and check out. So for example, there's one called Answer Socrates. There's that one's like specifically questions. You can, on Google, if you just start typing interior design Toronto, you'll notice that like an autofill dropdown comes up. You can look there. You can look at the people also ask section. My favorite spot though, which is kind of funny because it's not technically SEO, even though it is to go into Facebook communities and see what people are asking about there and see the questions there. Then I'm going to take whatever phrases I've seen or whatever topics I've seen. I'm going to take those, go over, pop them into my keyword research tool. And basically what I'm doing is just trying to make sure I have the phrasing right so that I'm using a phrase that people are actually looking for. So I always give the example, when I started blogging, I considered myself a slow mad. That's not a term other people use. Like that's not a term people know what that is. They know digital nomad and they know expat. So I had to pivot and I was like, okay, well, I need to actually use a term that they are searching for, because if I brand this site as something no one understands, that's weird and they're not going to search for it.
So that's actually a very, very important point, because, and that's what I do when I do voice of customer interviews. So I basically interview interior design clients to better understand not only their pain points, but also the language that they use. Because when you're using the language, the exact phrasing and words on your website, when a prospect gets on your website, they land on your website and they feel like you get them because you're using familiar language. So that's such an important topic. And I actually was in a very similar situation to yours, because when I became a copywriter and I could not settle on the term that I should be using. Should I be talking about content creation? Should I be talking about messaging? Should I be talking about copywriting? Until I later kind of, with years, I figured out, oh, okay, so people are more familiar. Well, right now they're more familiar with copywriting. But whereas before it was all about content, and if you used copy, like I had a few people say, copy what? Like, what does copy be? You know what I mean? Now I'm dealing with people who are a lot more savvier in that department. But, that's such an important point that I'm glad you're bringing it up.
Yeah. And so you don't need to have a million blog posts too. Like you don't need to, I think a lot of people think they need like literally 100 blog posts. You definitely don't.
So 10 posts, you mentioned 10 posts. Is that like a magic number? Why 10 posts? Or up to?
Because 10 posts, I would say 10 posts is my minimum to start with. And that's because it's going to cover a few different styles of questions for your audience. It's also going to show Google that you have topical authority. Everything we do is ultimately for Google, but I always see Google as like audience first, Google second, because Google's focus is your audience. So if someone's coming to buy from you and you have no client testimonials, you have no proof that you've done the thing, you have like no qualifications and no expertise showing, why would they purchase anything from you? Why would they work with you? So that's why we add that stuff on our website. But with a blog post, Google can't always they can't watch our videos. It can't go find us on Instagram. So we have to prove ourselves on our website. So having 10 posts basically creates what's called a content cluster, where it's like 10 little best friends all like living together and they're super close and tight knit, or even like sisters on a family tree, like they're all connected. And so we want to have those because it is showing that we know our stuff. To some extent with Google, you kind of show that you know it just by doing the most. And just having a bunch of posts. Now, that doesn't mean having literally the most, but having more on a topic. So if you specialize in a type of interior design, if your audience always asks you the same kind of question of like, I don't know if your services are right for me because I'm trying to decide between like, do I spend money on an interior designer or do I just go on Pinterest? Like things like that. You're going to look at those questions and those styles of queries and put those on your website. So you're going to optimize those. They're going to be posts the same way you optimized the pages before. So you got to have the keyword in your URL, keyword in your title, naturally within the post. I find with posts, there's no set number of times to use it. You kind of have to vary it up. And some keywords you're going to say 100 times, some you're going to say once. It depends on how long they are. I do recommend longer keywords tend to perform better. And that's because they're hyper specific. Again, like I mentioned before, like I'm not just going to search restaurants near me. I'm searching like I want a gluten-free Chinese restaurant that has egg rolls or something. Like I'm very specific. So those always perform better. Then once you have those posts, they've got to be written well. They should probably have images since you're interior designers and people should see stuff. You're also going to want to make sure that you're doing something called writing a meta description. Now, the way that I do this, because I don't like to get technical, I don't need to like custom code anything. I use a plugin called Rank Math. There's also one called Yoast and one called All In SEO. They are all free. So like, I don't really think you need the paid version of any of them. I like Rank Math personally. It doesn't really matter. But you're basically going to write a 150 character kind of like preview, I guess, of the post. It's basically selling the post. Like, what are you going to tell someone? And in that, you want to use the keyword once. So for example, like if it was a post about, but like, I don't know, again, I'm not great with interior design stuff, but let's just say like the house one again, because I've written stuff for her before. So, okay, you like, if you're looking to basically like have a ton of windows in your house, but you don't want your heating bill to go crazy, this is like the specialized installation that you need to check out. Click here to learn more. It's that sort of a text. ChatGPT can write it for you very easily. If you tell it to write you a meta description, it knows the rules of writing a meta, so it's pretty simple. But it's just to advertise the post.
The meta description are actually very important because they, from what I understand, they show up in search engines. So it's basically like a mini ad for whatever page you're trying to promote, right? So because there's those 150 characters, I think it's like a couple of lines that people are going to see in Google when they're typing in whatever keyword that you're trying to rank for. So that's actually super important. But I use Yoast and it, comes with my website and it's pretty easy to just give like a little blurb about your page, what it is, what's it about on the main angle of that.
And the great thing is that tools like Yoast and Rank Math will tell you if you're over the word count, because I can't count characters. I'm not going to do that. So they will do it for you. That's why I like them. And then you're going to want to make sure as well, like I said, they are all sisters. They're interconnected. You want to link between them. So we don't want anyone coming to a blog post and it's an island existing on its own. We want to interconnect them. So we want to make sure that like, okay, now you've learned about installations for windows. Well, if you care about sustainability that way, you probably also care about like, I don't know, I'm not great at this.
Like an adjacent topic, basically. And you want to make sure that you've got, if one blog post is talking about one topic, you want to give people an opportunity to dive deeper into that topic or to dive into a related topic and basically have a physical link to those other posts. So basically, let's say you've got 10 posts and within each post, maybe you have 2 links to.
I would do more.
Different.
I would do it.
You would put more?
I would do at least 5.
Oh, cool. Okay.
You would just add them naturally in the post. Like we're not calling them out really and saying like, hey, read this next. You're naturally going to talk about the same thing over and over again because this is your expertise. So when I'm talking about SEO, when I talk about internal linking, I might mention Link Whisper, a tool that I use to automate it. I might mention marking things as do follow or no follow. You guys won't need to worry about that. You're not using affiliates the same way. I might mention like, kind of tracking anchor text for 100 different internal links or whatever. And because I'm just naturally mentioning them in the post, I'm going to link to a different post where I go specifically into that. So you're kind of citing your sources almost and citing yourself as a source with your other posts. But what I also want to make sure that you guys are doing is that you're using a call to action within that post. So every post should lead to them eventually purchasing from you. That is the goal. This is you marketing your business. So if you're talking about something about like renovating a kitchen, then once they learn whatever this one individual pain point is from this post, they've had the opportunity to go to others if they want within the post. But at the end, we want to do a call to action to work with you. So you always want to link back to those services pages. So in that way, you're going to get a 6th link because now we're going back to another spot. And so we're basically just interconnecting everything, and you're kind of creating a spider web across your website of different like links between things. So people, if someone came to your website, they're going to be able to say, oh, okay, Nina knows SEO clearly. I can go like read about her, learn about her. She has services. Now I know what they are. I know why I can trust her to teach me that thing. And if I need a bit more clarification, I have blog posts that show me, oh, hey, she actually does know her stuff and she's proven it over here. And that's really what we're doing here. The keyword side of things, people often think keywords are like the cornerstone of SEO, and they honestly aren't. Audience is the cornerstone of SEO. Keywords are just filtering your language so that people can follow what you're talking about. It's just like translating yourself. Like, I don't know, everyone on TikTok, like there's certain words you can't say, or it triggers the algorithm to get mad at you. So people come up with a workaround, and it's become this like TikTok dialect. It's the same idea. We're just changing a couple words to make sure it's something that our audience is looking for. And I do recommend, when you're looking at blog post topics, try to figure out people that like may not even realize they need an interior designer yet. So a lot of people will start with just like the interior design services, and then they stop there too. So it's like that's someone at the end of the buying funnel. But you can get someone at the top who's trying to figure out like how to find your aesthetic, how to figure out like how to manage a home renovation, how to not kill your husband when you're trying to like agree on a couch, things like that. Those are people that may not even have realized this is a like solution to their pain point. So you can always start with the pain point rather than starting with the solution, or starting with the technical, like my sister's article I just mentioned. She has a lot of other ones that we've written where it's like, do you need an architect, or like how to make sure your architect is certified properly? Because she has worked with some uncertified people that she had to fix their mess, and like she doesn't want to do that anymore. So these things are basically just you platforming your expertise over and over again with a little bit of a keyword. And then beyond that, the internal linking will keep it all together. And to show up in the search results, once you have all this set up, you have to tell Google that you have it set up. Now, Rank Math and Yoast are both very helpful for this. You can create a Google Analytics and Google Search Console account, and it gives you a piece of code. You don't have to be a coder to deal with it. You just have to know how to copy and paste. I promise it's super easy. You're going to copy and paste it. You're going to go over to Yoast or Rank Math, and you're going to paste it in. In fact, with Rank Math now, you just like click a couple buttons and it'll auto connect to your account. And the reason I recommend doing that is, number one, having Google Search Console, it'll create what's called a sitemap, which essentially is like a floor plan of a house that you're submitting to the city. So now the city knows what your house looks like, so they can approve you building stuff. And then with Google Analytics, the reason that we want that is to actually know who's on our site. We want to know like how many visitors we have. There's like complex stuff you can set up to actually see like how they move through and if they purchase. Most people just want to know a total number of people on their website every month, and then they're happy. And you're mentioning before finding terms that like your audience is looking for. Once you've got this up and running for a while, and it will take a minute, like SEO is not instantaneous. It often takes 3 to 6 months for a post to like kind of settle in the Google results. And when you're first starting out, it will take 6 to like 9 months, I would say, because Google doesn't know who you are yet. So you got to give it time to get to know you. But once you have that, go to Google Search Console. Google Search Console tells you every keyword that you're ranking for, and it can tell you keywords that you're ranking for that you did not write on. So for example, maybe you wrote about this kitchen renovation, but you didn't talk about like how to pick a cabinet color that like works best with natural lighting or something, but you're oddly ranking for that. You're like ranking on page 3. Well, that's what's called a zero volume keyword. This is kind of a fancier term. It's a bit more of an advanced strategy. It's one of my favorite strategies, though. Essentially, it's like an undercover keyword. It's a new trend. Google hasn't even realized is a thing yet. Google hasn't realized users need this yet. And so you're ranking for it because there aren't any articles on it. There aren't any other articles answering this better than you can. And Google's already saying, hey, I trust Nina to talk about this subject because of this other post. So because of that, I'm liking this one. But if you wrote one dedicated to it, that would be so much better, because now it's like, oh, I'm on topic. I've got this. So when you write those posts, it's a free way, first of all, to get more keywords, which I think everyone appreciates when cost of living is insane. But it's also a way to get things that are a bit easier, usually really long tail. Like they're usually like, long tail is the term I use for a keyword that is over 4 words long. And it's a way to find more topics around your expertise. So you've already said like, hey, I'm talking about interior design. This is my focus. This is this. But you've kind of run out of ideas of things to add in. I mean, most of us, when we're an expert, we forget the beginner questions. So this is a great way to find them for free, and they're literally coming to you. and Google.
So it's an opportunity for fresh content, for new topic ideas. I want to know something about the ideation of topics. And you mentioned a couple of ways that you can figure out what topics you should write about, like, what are people already searching for? But I'm wondering, what if interior designers are worried about attracting DIY crowd, attracting people that want to DIY their way with interior design? How do you make sure that you're posting more strategic content that will actually help you identify and attract the right kind of audience, the audience that know they want a designer? We're not trying to attract people that, I'm not sure if I want a designer. Certain designers that I work with, they only want to work with people that know for a fact that maybe they've tried it already to DIY their way. Maybe they've tried to manage a construction on their own. They got burned. They spent a lot more money. It took forever. And now they know for sure they want to work with an interior designer. How do you make sure how do you find those topic ideas? What can it be? So it's not, here's how to, DIY your house. How do you find those topics?
There's a few different ways. Number one, just avoid the term DIY for sure. That's going to be part of it. But no, I think that you have to, first of all, figure out how you're treating your website. Are you treating it like a funnel where it can almost be like an onboarding form or a discovery call with your blog posts? So you can actually like put out posts that kind of filter out the people who are DIY. It's okay if they come to your website and then realize you're not for them and you've helped them figure that out. So the example I'm going to give is going to be hair, because I actually helped my old hairstylist do this. So I dye my hair bright purple. It's a thing I do. I love it. And she was starting a website for her own business. So I helped her create one. And her fear was, I don't want to put out content because what if they dye their hair at home and then they don't need me? And I was like, the people who are going to do that are going to do that. Like that is a choice that they're going to make. They're probably going to do it wrong and then they're going to come to you after. So the good thing is if you come out there and show your expertise and your experience, even if they go and try to DIY it, it might go terribly. And then they're going to come back because they're like, hey, this was that person I trusted that like didn't tell me to horribly DIY, told me how to do it right. And I just didn't do it the right way. I'm going to go back to them for help. Or you're also going to have people who like read it and go, oh my God, this sounds horrible. Like, I don't want to do that myself. I'm going to hire a designer. So in some cases, having things that are like top of funnel and basically like kind of exclusionary to some extent, like the DIYers are going to leave because you've given them the tips. The people who want your services are going to stick around to read more or book your services because of that call to action. The other thing to do is to like kind of do audience research for yourself, like figure out what are the questions that those people who then come back to you and say like, oh, like I didn't even know what to do because like my kitchen renovation is taking 8 times longer than it should have. And like all these things went wrong, blah, blah, blah. Like listen to those conversations. And then the way that I always start is I start with what people are saying. So I try to go to places where people are talking. Now, this could be TikTok comments on other people's posts. It could be YouTube comments on other videos. Look at some DIY videos. Honestly, see what people are saying when they're like, this went horribly wrong. What do I do? Like try and find the pain points that are for your target audience. And to some extent, attracting general people, I don't think is the worst thing because people don't always know what they need yet. So like I moved recently. I didn't know I would need an interior designer. My sister ended up doing it because like she's also good at that stuff. So like, thank God for me. That's why I don't know any terms. But when I got here, I was like, okay, how do I make sure that like I have like a dining room space and a living room next to it? How do I make that cohesive? And then when I Googled that, I went, this is like all the DIY stuff is horrible. I don't want to DIY this. I want someone else to do it. And so for me, I was the non-ideal client and then became the ideal client within that one article. So that's why I wouldn't be afraid of that. Now, you then want to listen to what they are saying when they're a bit further in the process, where they're certain that they want to work with you. And then again, listen to what they're saying, go take it to your keyword research tool, type it in. You can also use something like ChatGPT and tell it like, hey, this is who my ideal audience is. Give it a lot of information. Make sure you're like, not just my ideal audience is a 20-year-old woman, because it needs to know like what's the socioeconomic status, what type of house, blah, blah, blah. And then say like, hey, you know who you are now. Now give me a bunch of ideas for content that I could write that will ultimately convince them to work with me. I'm an interior designer that does X, Y, Z. And so it'll give you ideas. Those are not keywords, they are ideas. And then we're going to take those and go find keywords to associate with it. Now, when I was talking about keywords before, I also didn't mention difficulty scores, which is something that the platforms have. Most people will try to go for the highest volume, but they are the most difficult. So I was naturally telling you guys to go for the easy keywords by going for longer, hyper-specific ones, because they are almost always easier. But what you'll also notice is that it will show you when you click on that term, who's ranking in the top 10. So one thing that you can do is look at your competitors, take their URL and do what's called competitive analysis. Both the tools I mentioned before do this. You put in their URL and then you see all of the keywords that they're ranking for. So it's a good way to be like, hey, this is someone in my niche who's like doing what I'm doing. I want to go see what are they ranking for? What does Google already like someone in my niche for? And what are the audiences searching for? Take it slightly with a grain of salt because you don't know if those are converting perfectly for that person. So like if you see something that you're like, oh, they're ranking for it, it would be bring traffic, but it's not something I do. Like if it's like designing kids' rooms and you don't do that, then don't do that keyword. Please make sure that like every time you're picking a keyword, it's actually relevant to your business goal. But that's kind of ultimately how I come up with it. And then over time, as I get more emails from clients, as I'm kind of going through the web a bit more. Sometimes even just when I find like a trending thing, like right now, Moodang, the like hippo is trending for some reason on TikTok. Everyone loves this like fat little baby hippo. And so I have a lot of travel blogging clients. And so I was pitching them trending topics related to this. I was like, okay, we could talk about sustainable tourism in terms of like people going to Thailand to see this little hippo and how zoos are like not the best thing. We could talk about like other animals. There's also a Pesto, the penguin right now that people are also traveling to see. Like there's so many different ones. We could talk about like how TikTok is like encouraging travel to places people aren't going to. Like those are all articles someone could write. And these are people who do more content creation. But once in a while, it's nice to show that you're like paying attention to the trend. So it can be a really good idea to be like, hey, like my sister, she also builds cottages. There was a ton of flooding last summer. So we wrote a post about like, here are things to make sure when you're building a cottage that your architect is including so that your dock doesn't float away into the lake in the middle of the summer every year, because there are cottages near her that do that all the time. And so it wasn't really born from a keyword research tool. It was born from a trend and a need that people had. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that like ultimately SEO comes down to audience first. Sometimes that might mean that you do write a post that there isn't a keyword for, like Moodang doesn't really have keywords yet. It's so new. Same for like that cottage floating away. We didn't really have that. It took a couple months before they started to show up because these tools report like after the fact, right? So you've got to take a second for new topics. But we're basically just making sure if someone came to our website, they know that they can trust us. And then through Google, we're just making sure they can find us a bit easier, that if they search for us or if they search for something related to us, that they can find out about us. Now, the last thing I want to mention is it's called off-site SEO. Essentially, it's backlinks. Now, it used to be that you needed to do all this stuff to get a ton of backlinks. Honestly, most of it's going to get you in trouble, so don't do it. Instead, I'm going to tell you what to do.
Are you talking about listing your business in like various directories and all kinds of sites that have nothing to do with your business?
Yeah, or a lot of people will like make fake accounts on Facebook or like ChatGPT and then like tie it to the business. So now there's like 100 links from Facebook to your business. It doesn't work. That's not a real thing. They all don't count because Google ignores them. So people do weird stuff. People buy backlinks. You do not have to. The way that I treat backlinks is PR. So just like any business is going to do like announcements when they open, that they're going to go on podcasts and talk about their business.
Guest blogging.
Exactly. Like things like that, collaborating with people in your niche. That's what's going to matter to you. So I recommend trying to get out there. You don't have to do a million of these. There's a metric called DA, which is domain authority. Businesses don't tend to have to worry about it as much as a content creation site where like the whole focus of the site is content creation, but you can track how your backlinks are performing there. There's a free tool called Moz, M-O-Z, or Z if you're American, and the number will like just start to tick up over time when you're getting more backlinks. But essentially like go on something like this and have your website that they link. That's a backlink. You've now got a link going to your site. So it's just having people who aren't on your site. Again, it's all that referral kind of thing that you're doing anyway, having other people refer people to you. But the little robots of Google notice it and pay attention because, okay, if I hear all my friends recommending a place, I'm more likely to go there or to like work with that person. Whereas online, links are the way that Google perceives that. So writing guest posts, you can get mom blogs are a great one to like work with. A lot of mom bloggers will like want to have interior design people in to write a like guest spot about some sort of way to manage their house or their renovations or something. You could also definitely go with like lifestyle bloggers. There are interior design bloggers as well. And bloggers are a really great one. You could even collaborate with other interior designers. I know for my sister, she like says like, hey, I'm all booked up. Here are like my 4 friends I trust that you could go to. And so you can kind of do the same thing with content on your website. And the easiest way to like get these links as well, especially when you're going to go to a blog, is to have those couple of blogs on your site that you can then, the same way you were internal linking on your site, you're going to go on their site, write your guest post, and link back to your site naturally inside of it. Kind of like.
And that's a backlink.
And that's a backlink.
And I feel like for interior designers, there's so many different things that you could do. Like you mentioned a whole bunch already, but it could be also like getting mentioned in your vendors, for example, that you're using, or like millwork specialists and tradespeople on their websites. And maybe you're attending industry events and you're an attendee or a speaker or exhibitor, whichever. So you get mentioned there. So that's all backlinks. So there's multiple different ways that you can do that. But Nina, I want to take a step back for a second. I want to go back to something that you said almost like at the beginning. I should have asked you that, but I didn't. When you were talking about when you're just naming your business and coming up with a name and being strategic about the name. So I had so many conversations in the past with interior designers that are just starting out. And in fact, I was just at a conference that I was sitting at a table. It was a copywriting conference, but I was sitting at a table with somebody who is coming up with a name for their company, and they were not sure whether they should name their business as their name or have a keyword and like get a creative name. What would you say from the perspective of SEO when you're coming up with a name? Because I feel like a lot of people can resonate with that. 6 years ago when I was naming my business and named it Content Vertical, kind of wish I could go back right now because content was like the word to have in your name. But I kind of wish I went back and named it something else. What would you say to this? Like, what's your advice so to make sure, SEO is benefiting or you're benefiting from the SEO standpoint?
I would say your name is fine. It's just that you might want to move on to other things. And especially if you ever want to sell the business or grow the business and expand it, it's very hard if you are the entire business. Now, I also think like Nina Clapperton isn't as immediately like apparent what I do and what I talk about as she knows SEO. So in my opinion, I think naming your business just your name isn't as brandable. I think it's definitely easier to have a branded name. Even like Nina Clapperton Designs or something like would still be a little bit more specific. And I think that one's fine. What I wouldn't do and what I see a lot of people do, there's always like memes that go around online where it's like a dentist who's like the name of their business is like best local dentist near me or something is like the name of the office. it's funny because it's something that's essentially, it's called using an exact match domain where the name of your business is a high volume keyword. The problem is that's not brandable. So I actually have a site called Ottawa Things to Do that I started as a test of this. And I was like, okay, that's a really popular keyword. I want to write about Ottawa in Canada. Let's rank for it. The problem is if you search Ottawa Things to Do, that's not a branded term, right? Like it doesn't immediately show that my blog would come up. Instead, all these other blogs about things to do in Ottawa show up. And because it was so competitive, to this day, it's been a couple of years, I've never been able to like break into I think sometimes I get on the first page, but never into the top spot. And so because of that, people can't find me. So when you're naming your business, I kind of jokingly said like cozyarchitecture.com. If that's like, if someone just says like architect near me, if someone just has like house architect, that doesn't tell us anything. It's not creative, but it's also not brandable for search. I wouldn't worry about including a keyword, but if possible, to include something that like makes it clear what your business is and who you are. Like I said, designs is quite good. That's a really common one for architects too. Having something where it's just like a little bit extra. I know lawyers where it'd be like Nina Clapperton law or something. Having that one extra term, first of all, separates it from you personally, but also make sure it does tell search pretty quickly what you're about.
Yeah. So it's more, I feel like it's more important than, rather than being clever or funny or witty or whatever, or creative, but to make sure that your audience gets, and Google and audience gets what it is that you do and kind of differentiates you.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So first of all, I really love your perspective when it comes to SEO. When you said audience is the cornerstone of SEO, I feel like it's so refreshing to hear that rather than relying on keywords and talking about keywords and it's all about keywords. But I love that you're saying, well, actually, it's all about your audience. So it's all, the more we know about our audience, the more effective we are with all of our SEO efforts and all the other marketing strategies. So I love that. I'm wondering, so I read that you've got your blog on your website gets 250,000 page views per month. I'm wondering if there's like a one specific strategy, or is it a combination of things that you do and you taught us here today? What is that thing that you attribute this kind of success to?
I think the main success was just writing on the same topic, even when I should have gotten bored of it, and like really interconnecting everything. So once Google trusts you on a topic and says like, oh, Nina knows SEO, like she's got that, then they're going to keep trusting you when you publish new content. So that was a big one. Then also like those zero volume keywords I mentioned, there's a few other ways to find them that are a bit more techy. But honestly, my favorite way is to go into your Google Search Console and find those things that other people would ignore. Other people often ignore long tail keywords because they look like they have less volume, and sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. Because the way that like keyword research tools work is they run through the Google AdWords algorithm. So the same keywords you'll see there for buying ads for Google, that's how this is getting powered. So it does a bit extra like on top of it, but it's ultimately going to look for the highest volume stuff and prioritize that. So that means kind of underestimating the potential of these like underdog keywords. So I love writing for them. I love writing for the dumb questions, for the things no one else thought to write about. And that was the biggest thing. So like living in my niche, knowing my audience, listening to them, and then creating content I knew would help them the most and not focusing on the stats. I know so many people who like, they won't write for a keyword if it is under like 1,000 or even 10,000 page views or volume in like in the keyword tool. And I'm like, so like, why? What are you doing? And I think that was a big thing. I also like that 250. I didn't use social media at all for that site. So that was entirely from Google. And a lot of the success there was that like, because Google liked me for one thing, it would like me for the next thing when I published a post really quickly.
Because you already had trust. You've already built trust with all the other things that you've done.
And when I hit that, I hadn't written a new post in 4 months. So it also took time for that to take off. So don't forget that part. I know a lot of people are like, oh, she must have been writing every single day. Like I was road tripping with my dog for 6 months. I wasn't publishing anything. I was like
How often? I actually don't think we talked about it. How often should we blog? How like what's the frequency that you recommend?
There's no like perfect number. I would say like if you can get those 10 up I don't know, kind of as fast as you can get them up, that's good. If you do at least like 1 or 2 a year, that's quite nice. And then the main thing is update your content. Like go back and update what you already have, because Google, like, it's like an anchor, your old content, or like I often say it's like, oh, like past like childhood trauma or like ex-boyfriends from high school. It's like dragging you down a bit. So go back and like spring clean the house before you invite new people over. I know I'm mixing like 8 different metaphors there, but I like metaphors. And
I got it.
so it's like you're going to go back about once a year and just double check your content. Now, for me, I definitely publish more because the main thing for me was content. And like that's how I was making money. Now that I have more services that I do, I had to step back. I was doing 12 to 25 posts a month, but that was my full-time thing that I was doing, right? So I don't want any
per month.
Yeah. I don't want any interior designer going like, oh my God, I need to do 25 posts. Don't, because you won't have any clients because you won't have time. So I would say like if you're doing one every other month, that is way more than most people are doing. If you are doing like 2 a year, that's still great. And the main thing I would say is every year I want you to do what's called a content audit and just go through and just make sure everything's still accurate. The amount of sites people go to and it's not accurate is wild, and Google wants to know that it's accurate. So also when you update a post, you can change the published date to today. That way it's like, hey, it's new. And it is. It's going to be like, oh, you got like a full like face of makeup done. You got your hair done. You've done like one of those ultimate makeover things. It's a new version of the same thing. It needs to be reintroduced to Google. So that was probably part of it too, but I don't think I had done a content audit. I usually do mine in January, and I hit that, I think, in August. So I don't think the content audit had played a role in that one too much, but it definitely didn't weigh things down.
I like that. Oh my goodness. So many different ideas. I've written down like a bunch of notes to try with my own site, because I feel like I have this bank of ideas and I'm like, oh my God, I should blog on this and this and this. But you know what stands out the most to me from this conversation? Like when you mentioned that you blogged, what is it that you called it? Like a dumb questions people ask or something like that, like the topics that no one is blogging about, no one is talking about, because maybe it's 1 or 2 people have asked that, but not like 100 people, because there's so much content already out there on those topics that everybody's talking about, but not enough. And if it speaks to the one exact client, I'd rather do that than to have great content that goes viral and speaks to a whole bunch of people, but none of them are going to come my way. So yeah, I absolutely love that you shared that. So thank you so much for that. Well, I really appreciate you spending the time with me here today. I'm going to ask you one last question. It's kind of a little bit off topic, but was there like a habit or a practice that you've adapted, whether it's in your personal life or in your business, that has been game changing for you?
Oh, that's a good one. I've changed a lot in the last couple of years, but I think my main thing is, and this is kind of my business motto, is follow your fun. So I do things that are interesting and fun to me, even when they make no sense to other people. I was on a cruise getting a massage, got an idea for a plugin. I don't know how to code, but then I coded a plugin and I just figured it out in a weekend. And like, it was just fun to do. For one of my courses, I wanted to gamify it. So I made a Chrome extension that's like a backpack that holds all your files the same way it would in a video game, because I thought that would be fun. Did anyone else in my life think that was a good idea? No, they were like, Nina, go outside, do other things. But for a lot of my business, I don't run it the same way other people do, because I like to follow my fun. And then I'm going to steal one of my sisters, actually. Like, she's younger than me, but she's like the smartest person. She's one of those people, like, she's an architect. She wakes up at like noon every day, which I think is wild. And I'm like, how do you do this? She's like, I crafted the life that I wanted to lead. So she'll wake up for an early meeting once in a while if she has to, but she's like, ultimately she has a team who can handle things so that she can like work at midnight if she feels like it. And I think that following your fun and making sure that everything you're doing serves that life you want to lead, that's what changed things for me. I stopped taking on random nonsense. I stopped like trying to fit myself in a box that I just don't fit in. And it helped me like fall back in love with my business. And even when things are slower or harder, because I'm following the fun, like it's fun. And so I want to do it. And I think that's really important.
Oh, that's amazing. Thanks so much for sharing that. I'm gonna remember that. Full refund. This is awesome. Well, Nina, thanks again for being here today and sharing so much with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Marketing for Designers. This is Masha Cohen signing off. See you next week.